All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast. Here recording episode 103 for week 10 of the NFL season, which this season's flying by. It's been a blink of an eye. I know, like in like this the picture of football season, 10 weeks, like that's crazy to think of. But we were talking about it like teacher wise the other day, like man, we're in November. We're at November break here this week. Like this school year has been flying by, which means that the school year is flying by, the football season is flying by. It's been fast and furious. I know football season for almost everybody's up. We have provincial finals coming up here for high school football this upcoming week. We also have the Canadian junior football as well, where the Hilltops take on. I can't remember the team's name for BC, but they're taking on for the national championship. We got lots of the Hardy Cup the Hardy Bowl is this upcoming week. We got lots of football going on. So as we are flying through the NFL season, we're also wrapping up a lot of football here in Saskatchewan and Canada. But we'll start talking some football, start talking some shop here. Before we get started, we'll say hello to the fellas, and we'll start this one off with Armand. Armand, I know we got the break coming up here, a little bit of a grind here, and then a PD day for you guys on Thursday. But what's been keeping you guys busy?
Oh, it's been nice having some time to spend with the family and catch up a little bit on the housework and other stuff around the house. Wild weekend for fantasy for me though. Two huge things happened on Monday. I had two Monday miracles, so I was on top of the world at the end of the night on Monday, even though I was pooping my pants all evening.
The Chargers defense one is an absolute unreal story.
Yeah. So the first one is the Chargers defense. So in the league I'm commissioned, like I'm in 7 leagues. Sometimes it's hard to manage everything. And I didn't even realize that my defense was on a bye week. I was almost down and out, but I was kind of close enough that I was like, if a defense has a half decent game, I might be able to sneak this one out. So I go on the waiver wire quickly to see if there's any defenses left to play this weekend that are still available. And the only one was the Chargers. So I picked them up, slot them into my lineup Sunday night. And then they put up in this league, I think they ended up putting up 25 points and gave me the W.
Like borderline 30 points.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. I felt pretty bad for the guy who I beat, but I was like, you know what? Like, that's fantasy, man. Like, holy crap.
That's the way she goes.
Yeah, just got lucky. Like LA Chargers wouldn't have been my pick for defense streaming this week, but it happened, and I'm glad it did.
Well, start streaming whatever defense you can get against the Jets, man. They looked super bad, like stinky bad.
Yeah, and the fantasy gods are smiling down on me. So, the other one is I won by 1.2 points against the principal at my school this week. And it came down to Monday night. He had Garrett Wilson, I had Austin Eckler, and I needed us to cut a spread of like 7 points, I think. And that strip sack at the end of the game that the Chargers ran down to the 2-yard line, and then he called out instead of touchdown, saved my fantasy night, because that Eckler touchdown won me the game. And then that whole drive after, I was just holding my breath the whole time, hoping that they didn't throw to Garrett Wilson, because all they needed was one throw to Wilson, and then game over for me. And the Chargers weren't going to give Eckler the ball again, at least not in the pass game if they got the ball back. So that was pretty wild.
Yeah, that's a fun ride. Those ones are like they're hard on the heart, but that's a fun way to wrap up the fantasy week, is those Monday miracles.
Yeah, it felt pretty good. And then my wife was like, you should go up to the principal tomorrow and just casually drop 1.2 into everything you can into the conversation to see if he picks up on it.
Yeah, and then there's Armin looking for a job next year.
Yeah.
And Zach, how about yourself? Nice relaxing weekend, and I guess we got the break coming up here too.
Yeah, you guys keep on talking about a break. I don't know. You guys get more than 3 days off?
Yeah, we got our day in lieu because of interviews. So we got a PD day.
Friday.
Yeah, we got PD day on Thursday. So our kids are only Monday to Wednesday this week.
Holy.
Yeah, we're living the dream.
No kidding. I'm not even sure if we get a day in lieu for interviews or not.
Yeah, hey, come. PA would take you back, Zach. You get those days off, baby.
You know they would.
Oh, there's some days where it's not a bad idea when the property tax comes through.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Oh, ain't that the truth? I can only imagine.
Yeah, nothing too special though. Just apparently complaining now about my work schedule. That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. We'll just take a couple sick days and you get those long weekends too, Zach. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So yeah, before we get started here, I gotta take a second to tell a story here. So we do a little sports investing here on the podcast. We do Wellsy's wagers, we do all that fun stuff. But little story, couple buddies of mine here in PA. We do what we do is called Sports Select, like the pool Sports Select. You can go to the gas station, you fill out your tickets, you can get a chance. Basically, it's like a massive parlay. You got to hit every single game, and if you do, you get a chance at winning some money. So big fan. Charity league guys, been involved with the podcast stuff for I think pretty much day one. Brady Weilandman, good buddy of mine, good friend of the show. Brett Blakely and Cam Mugford, all buddies of mine. So I'm gonna get some name drops here for the boys. But we've been doing pools together for a couple of years, and we've been close many a times. Lots with one loss and can't get it done. But this week we put together our pools, and we had the one like put you through the whole ride. We had Houston outright, and we're going to talk about CJ Stroud a little bit here, but his comeback with like 30 seconds on the clock kept our ticket alive. And then we had to sweat out Philadelphia against Dallas. That whole time we had to sweat that out. So we were alive. Our ticket was alive the whole time. Monday night, we decided we're going to get together, order some pizza, and watch the Monday nighter. And if the Chargers win, we get a perfect ticket. And sure enough, we're obviously talking about it now. We get a perfect ticket, which means like if you get a perfect ticket, you're automatically winning money, and you get a piece of whatever the pot is. And our pot was 100, and I think it was 124,000 or 126,000. So we're like, okay, well, how much are we going to win? And we looked back through like so much different stuff to figure out like what would be the estimate of our winning. And like one guy won 164,000 or 168,000 straight up. Last week I think it was 4 people split 147,000 or something like that. So like we're like, okay, man, we're gonna be rich. Like this is gonna be freaking awesome. We're already planning a football trip. Like we were getting ready, like it was gonna be deadly. We wake up this morning to find out there was 85 perfect tickets. So 85 people split $126,000. So we left with 100 or what it was $1,400, just about $1,500, $1,477.70. So but to make matters worse, this whole story, so it's funny, like I can only laugh at myself because it's incredibly frustrating. But we're thinking, okay, smart guys here, we're gonna hedge the Monday nighter, so we're gonna guarantee to win money. So we put $1,000 on the Jets to win, thinking, okay, if Chargers lose, we're guaranteed Jets money. There we go, money line, $2,800. We're guaranteed money. We split that 4 ways. We're laughing. Chargers win, so we're thinking we're making it big. So we have to pay off this $1,000 loss. We all won like $106 on a perfect ticket. Absolute disaster. So you can only imagine how grouchy a bunch of guys are to have say we won $100. I mean, I've never been so bitter to win money in my life, but we had a perfect pools ticket. So I mean, it was like chasing a leprechaun. It was a perfect bracket, perfect ticket, whatever you want to call it. So fun story to start the podcast off with that. We all won $100 out of a pot of $126,000. Worst case Ontario, but so we're looking to bounce back. We're looking to go back to back and try and see if we can maybe do a little better this upcoming week. But I was looking at some of the matchups too, and there's some like greasy matchups. So who knows? Maybe there's a chance. We're saying there's a chance. But we'll get things going here with a quick question of the week. So without further ado, let's get her going.
Time to find out.
So we're getting that time of year. We're about a little over the halfway mark here of we just surpassed the halfway mark of the NFL season, but a little over halfway mark of the fantasy season. And we're looking at guys that are just outside of the top 12. So the question is, who do you think is a dark horse? So not necessarily like a guy that's in like the 13th, 14th spot, to make the jump, but who's someone that's a dark horse to jump up into the top 12 of their position by the end of season. So whether it be an RB, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, whatever, something that's outside the top 12 right now, and something that can maybe make that jump moving forward here. Armand, let's go with yours first, because mine and Zach we're sharing a positional discussion. So maybe we'll go you first here, and then we'll pivot to another position.
All right, so I went with Jamyhr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions, the rookie RB, who's going on a little bit of a heater right now. He's had a few good games in a row. He's running the ball super efficiently, and I don't see why the Detroit Lions would give away too many of his touches once Monty finally starts playing again. And you know what, like, I think it's totally within the realm of possibility. He's only about 20 some points away from the RB12, even though he's RB25 right now. So it won't take a lot to catch back up, especially at the pace he's at right now. And I'm excited to see how he finishes the season. And he's got some juicy matchups against the Chargers, Chicago, Green Bay, Chicago again, Denver. And he's got some a little bit tougher ones with New Orleans, Minnesota, and Dallas. But Minnesota can be susceptible to giving up big fantasy outputs from good offenses. So even though they've been a little bit locked down lately, but it could still be a whole or an easy matchup for him later on in the season. So yeah, Jamyhr Gibbs, man, he's looking good.
I'm super curious on how that's going to shake out when Montgomery comes back. Obviously, right now he's been awesome. He's been a stud. He's had those breakout type games. You know, he's been very, very, very good. But Montgomery is just a different species in that red zone, and he just finds ways to punch that ball in. So I'm very curious to see how that'll shake out here. But I mean, if they can keep giving him the ball and he can have those breakaway plays where he's snapping off 20, 30, 40-yard runs, he's going to continue to obviously have some good value here. But Zach, this one I was surprised to see that you put in here, because maybe not surprised because of the talent, but surprised because of how dysfunctional the offense has been up to this point. So this one was a little bit surprising, but there's clearly a path for this one to happen. So I'll let you take the floor for this one.
Yeah, you bet. I said Garrett Wilson, wide receiver for the New York Jets, currently wide receiver 27 on the season, as my pick for the dark horse to sneak into the top 12. Looking at his stats for this year, he has 81 targets, which is more than 5 of the top 12 fantasy wide receivers. And his yards per reception, 11.9, is better than 6 of the top 12 wide receivers, top 12 wide receivers. And that's with Zach Wilson at the helm. And if you believe what is being reported, maybe not in the next couple of weeks, but further down the road, the Jets may be able to get Aaron Rodgers back. And if that happens, I think there is a very real possibility of him climbing the ladder through the 20s and into the teens, and possibly even into the top 12 wide receivers on the season. It wouldn't shock me if he was able to get to that range, knowing just how good he is, and looking at some of the wide receivers there in that range. I don't know if Jacoby Myers is able to sustain the pace. Devontae Adams is able to sustain the pace. Not having the any consistency at quarterback for the Raiders. Who knows what happens now with Jordan Addison at in Minnesota, with Dobbs at quarterback. So Puka Nacua, who knows?
That was the name I was going to throw out there. That's the name I can see.
There's a lot of these like 15, 14, number 10, number 6 guys that could fall out and could be, easily replaced by a guy like Wilson, or guys like Devontae Smith, Chris Olave, players like that. Bit of a cheeky smuggle here. I'd also like to say DAlton Kincaid, rookie tight end for the Bills, especially now with him being the team's number one tight end. And by watching the past couple of games, maybe their number two target on the offense right now. He's tight end 17, but geez Louise, the tight end landscape, it's garbage. And he is somebody that could easily climb into the top 12, I think.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where like tight end 12, if you have the tight end 12 in the season, you don't have a lot going on, but he had next to zero relevance the first few weeks, but he's been pouring it on big time. But that's a guy you could see pop into like the top 8 conversation, and even if the tight end 8 on the season, it's like, okay, you had some big weeks, but you had some not so great weeks. Like that's been kind of the living spot for guys like David Njoku. He's been kind of like, a tight end 10, and Zach Ertz in the last couple of years, has not been super great. Hawkinson early on, where he was kind of in that like 6-7 range. I think was it last year he finished at 3, or was that 2 years ago? I can't remember. But I'm going to stick with the wide receiver conversation with Zach here. And this one, he's been sneaky good. Like I'll say good, not great. And I'm not just saying that because he was one of my certified my guys, but I was looking back and I was thinking like, oh man, like that was kind of a miss, like I had high expectations. I thought Kyler was going to come back earlier. It's been kind of one of those ones where it's like, I'll have to eat that. But I looked at like, he's been sneaky good. Like right now he's wide receiver 21 with some really bad weeks, but he's been like 10, 12, 17. I think he had like a 20-point week, and then he had like a 4, like just kind of riding the roller coaster a little bit with like, I would say one of, if not the most dysfunctional offenses in the NFL. But now Kyler Murray's back this upcoming week, which is huge for him. I'm not saying it's going to be a slam dunk this week, Kyler's first game back. But if you look at the rest of the season schedule for them, it's not terrible. Like they have the Falcons this week. Then next week they have the Texans. The following week they have the Rams. Then they have the Steelers, which is not a great matchup, but is susceptible to the passing game. Then you have the 49ers, which is not a great matchup, but still a little more susceptible to the pass than they are the run. And then they have the Bears to finish off the fantasy season on Christmas Eve. So for a guy that is a wide receiver 1 and is the wide receiver 1 on that offense, hasn't been terrible so far this season, sitting currently right now at the wide receiver 21. And obviously going off that list of names that Zach had talked about, where they're not going to be able to sustain that production they've got. There's some names that I would suspect to start dropping off a little bit with, the transition of quarterbacks. And like I said, Marquez Hollywood Brown is getting a massive upgrade at the quarterback position here. This upcoming weekend, obviously, trajectory move forward would continue to ramp up as Kyler gets more comfortable and obviously healthy. So a guy that might be, well, not just my name, but all three would be a sneaky little pickup right now. Like Jamyhr Gibbs, you could probably, obviously have the breakout game might be a little bit more expensive, but with Montgomery coming back healthy pretty soon here, might be able to get him on a little bit on the cheaper side. Then we already talked about how bad the Jets offense is. So Garrett Wilson is a guy you might be able to get cheaper. And then Hollywood Brown, like I said, I was sneaky being like, okay, yeah, hasn't been very good. He had a really bad week this past week, like really, really bad, which worked out well for Zach because it was his sit of the week. So I'm just going to pump Zach's tires a little bit there. But I'm hoping for some big stuff coming from him moving forward. Get ourselves some insiders and headliners. A couple of things that I want to talk about quickly. I don't want to dwell too much on it just because of time sakes, but we'll get into the insiders and headliners.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
All right, so I already mentioned Kyler coming back this week. Huge for Arizona. It's going to be very interesting to see what he's capable of doing this upcoming week. Daniel Jones, this one sucks for Daniel Jones. He did get the contract this past year, but it has been not a great season. It's been actually a quite bad season for Daniel Jones and for the New York Giants. They're currently 2-7 right now. He tore his ACL. His season's over. We're deep into the season. Would imagine that's going to pour obviously into a little bit next season, but the Giants season's over. Waller's on the IR. It's also on the list here, so he's going to miss a minimum of 4 weeks. So they're going to be a team that in the contention for May or for Williams this upcoming draft, like with the high draft capital quarterback with a the season's basically being over for them. So it's tough for Daniel Jones, especially a guy that was unable to bounce back this season or even, you know, kind of get things moving at all. So another quarterback, Carson Wentz, signed to the Los Angeles Rams. This is concerning. I would say, for me personally, as a guy that has Cooper Kupp in quite a few leagues, I would be a little bit concerned because you don't just go sign a guy off the street when, like, if you had any sort of hope that Matthew Stafford was going to be coming back from that hand injury, that thumb injury. They had Rippon that played this past week and didn't look good. They got smoked by the Packers. It was a not good performance whatsoever. Cooper Kupp struggled in that matchup. So them signing Wentz is an indication to me that the panic alarms are going off a little bit, that Stafford is going to miss some time, and who knows what that means for those auxiliary pieces. We talked about Puka Nacua already, but talking about Cooper Kupp as well too. It's that'd be a little bit concerning. We'll see what happens here, but you don't just sign quarterbacks for no reason. Cam Akers, this one sucks. We actually, Armin and I, the one episode was just the two of us there. We talked about how Cam Akers has looked pretty good so far, and how Armin was actively pursuing trying to get Cam Akers on his teams. Early in that game for the Vikings, left with an ankle injury, what they called it, and then later on to find out it was an Achilles injury, and he has torn his Achilles, which, like, to me, like, I don't know if it's just me, but like, it seems like there's been so many Achilles injuries this season, like way more this year than we've had in the past. Like, I remember the Cam Akers one, when was it his Achilles 3 years ago, and we're like, that was the first Achilles injury in a long time. And he came back because Deontay Foreman was that before that. It was a couple of years prior, but now it's been like Achilles, like so many injuries. But so he'll miss some time. The season's over. He's gonna have to rehab that one again. And then one last one is Dallas Goedert fractured forearm, so he's gonna miss some time as well with that Eagles offense. So lots of these injuries create opportunities moving forward. Obviously, we got our waiver wire is going to be going through as we're recording tonight on Tuesday, but there's going to be some opportunity for teams moving forward this week, especially with the bye weeks. We'll talk about the bye weeks here in a little bit, but one last thing, we'll recap some studs and duds, and then we'll get into the upcoming week. So Zach, this one, there is no bigger stud of the week than Zach's stud here, so we'll let Zach go first.
Well, thanks for that honor. My stud for the week is CJ Stroud, quarterback for the Houston Texans. Stroud had a record-setting week. He had the most ever passing yards for a rookie quarterback with 470, and the most ever passing touchdowns for a rookie quarterback with five touchdowns in a game. So congratulations to him. A fun little stat that I saw the other day was through the first 9 games of his career, I suppose, Stroud has more passing touchdowns than Kenny Pickett does after a season and a half in the NFL. So says a lot about Stroud and probably says just as much about Kenny Pickett, unfortunately. And I guess the benefactors of Stroud were the Texans receivers, and I think Armin wants to talk about one of those guys for his stud of the week.
Hey, nice segue, Zach. Real nice segue.
Yeah, my stud of the week is Tank Dell, who put up 32.7 fantasy points and half-point PPR, 6 receptions, 114 yards, and 2 tutties. In the end, really, everyone benefited from Stroud's big day, but none other as much as Tank's Bigsby, or not Tank Bigsby, Tank Dell. But
Tank Bigsby didn't have a good week.
Yeah,
he was on bye.
But yeah, even Dalton Schultz got into the mix there. I think he was tight end 1 on the week or something like that. And then Dare, I want to give a little shout out to Dare Ogunbowale, who is a running back for Houston, who Houston ended up losing their kickers, and they didn't have any kickers left on dressed at the end of the game there. And he ended up kicking the game-winning field goal for for the Houston Texans there. So that's pretty hype for him. He's getting kind of a journeyman who never really has gotten any NFL snaps on an offense ever, really. But he got his day in the sunlight there, and I hope he soaks it in as much as he can.
Man, I didn't realize Schultz, like number one by quite a bit. Like Komet's had 2 touchdowns. Kate Otten had 2 touchdowns, but Dalton Schultz, 10 receptions for 130 and 1. Oh man, he had an unbelievable week. Didn't even realize quite the production he had there.
Yeah, it was between him and Tank Dell, so I had to mention both.
Yeah, well, that's a big week. That would we owe the fact that we won $100 each on that comeback and CJ Stroud, because our ticket would have been dead real quick if that comeback didn't happen. But my stud of the week is going to be CeeDee Lamb. I think I can't remember if I talked about him last episode of the week before, but he's just been constantly producing. He's just been so good for this offense, and he's turning into a superstar. And there was a lot of concern that he didn't make that big jump in year 2. He was good but not great. And is CeeDee Lamb legit? Is he a wide receiver 1? Is he a franchise guy? And man, he's been unbelievable this season. Another 16 targets with 11 of them being catches, 191 yards and no touchdown. 22.6 fantasy points on 0 touchdowns is very, very, very impressive. So I mean, even if you add 1 tutty in that mix, we're looking at like almost a 30-point week for CeeDee Lamb. So very, very good week for a young, rising, budding superstar that just continues to get it done week in, week out for the Dallas Cowboys. Bringing it back, Zach, I don't know if there is a player that has been more disappointing this fantasy season than this gentleman that you're going to be discussing.
Bijan Robinson. Bijan is, like you put it, probably one of the bigger disappointments on the season. I remember going back to, was it Armin's draft that we were doing together? Yeah, the keeper. I got him at the turn 2-1, and we were all thinking that I got maybe to steal the draft because I could keep him at a rookie pick, second rounder, going for the next couple of years. But this year it's been really confusing, I suppose. Bijan this week, 11 attempts for 51 yards, and it's almost like he's been surpassed by Tyler Algier. And I think the most frustrating part is listening to Arthur Smith post game, the way he talks about, well, we're just gonna ride the hot hand. When I think it's probably quite obvious to most of us that Robinson is the far superior player.
His quote was, "We don't need the ball in his hands for him to be effective for us." It's like, yeah, but he's not even on the field. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean he's like handing out water bottles on the sidelines to be effective for your team? Like, he's washing Algier's jockstrap. Like, what do you mean he's being effective for our team to be successful? Hey, you're losing. Like, I think he's the next coach to get fired is Arthur Smith. I was thinking he was going to be the first. The Raiders jumped the gun on that one and surpassed. But man, especially like, it's different if you're winning games. It's different if you're winning football games and you're a good head coach. But like, you're a bad coach. You're a bad system. You have 3 players that were taken in the top 10 in the last 3 years of the NFL draft, and you don't use any of them. Jonnu Smith has surpassed Kyle Pitts substantially this season. Kyle Pitts was a top 5 pick, top 6 pick? What was he, like, taking 6th overall?
Something like that. At least top 8.
And then Drake London was a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And then now Bijan Robinson. And like, Algier's past Robinson. London barely gets the ball. He was hurt this past week, so I can't even use like a comparison there. But then like, yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, especially as somebody that's, fantasy wise, and you invest in these people like Armin. Would you take 2nd overall, 3rd overall in dynasty drafts for Kyle Pitts?
Yeah,
like, every year we have the same conversation.
Or 3rd.
Like, it's insane. One of the most athletic guys on the field, and he's getting beat by Jonnu Smith, who couldn't stick it on a previous roster. Like, oh, it's demoralizing. That's my rant of the day, I think, right there.
One thing I'll add is we should have maybe seen it coming a little bit, because Arthur Smith does seem to like Smith, because that is when Jonnu had his best years, was in Tennessee when Arthur Smith was still there, right?
We're digging deep in the well for that one, though. Like, that would be like one of our hot takes in the offseason, diving into that one. But
two notes here on the Atlanta offense. Number one, did you guys see Jonnu Smith break that huge run on Sunday?
He looked so slow, but was covering so much field.
And then did you see him just about die in the tunnel?
When he slipped and fell?
Yeah.
Just
yard sale.
There's an ACL waiting to happen there. It looked ugly. And then he was sailing while he's sitting on the ground or something.
And then Arthur Smith looks like Daniel Day-Lewis's character from Gangs of New York, with just that massive mustache.
Yeah, it's he's, and like last year, like, I could just, I'm gonna rant. I'm gonna this episode's could be long if I just want to keep ranting about how much I despise Arthur Smith right now, but we'll continue on. This one, Armin, yours, this one sucks because I thought it was a sneaky pickup. I thought this was gonna be a sneaky play, especially with Palmer going on the IR. It's like, hey, this is a time to shine, but not so much.
Yeah, and I even put a little bet on him last night, because I was like, yeah, Palmer's on IR. They're playing New York, or the Jets, who probably are going to have Sauce Gardner covering Keenan Allen all night long. So, Quentin Johnson, it's your time to shine. This is your moment. You're going to have more targets this week, and then 2 targets for 14 yards, 3.1 half point PPR points, and it was sad to see, because it's clear either Herbert doesn't trust him, or he doesn't know what he's doing in this offense at all yet. That's the only explanations I can think of as to why he hasn't broken out in any form whatsoever yet. And he was highly regarded going into this year. People were thinking, he's going to be one of the rookie wide receivers to target in the mid rounds and stuff. And he's completely let people down.
Yeah, I put a anytime touchdown for him too, and it wasn't even close to being close to hitting. It was unfortunate, that one, but yeah, it happens. And well, I'll keep my one short and sweet here. Like, I think I kind of did the same thing last time, where it's like, I'm putting in here as a discussion, not that I'm panicking and trying to sell or whatnot, but Travis Kelce. It seems like this happens once a year, where he has a really bad game and everybody tries to buy low real quick after, because he had a bad week. And I'd say this is a good time to maybe buy low, because not only have a bad week, but he'll have a worse week this week because it's his bye week. So he's guaranteed to get you 0 points. So maybe it is a good time to try and buy low on him, I suppose. But like, that was a bad football game. If you got up in the morning to watch that one, the Miami versus the Kansas City game, we were not spoiled to an unbelievable football game. We weren't even spoiled to a lot of offense, let alone a lot of scoring. And we've been saying this a few times now, I think, Zach. I think we talked about it, and it was an episode, or week 3, when we said, like, what was going on. How come the Kansas City versus insert name, whoever it wasn't on TV? It was like, how is not one of the best games on? I can't remember who they're playing, but and it turned out to be the Jags, I think. Yeah, and it turned out to be an absolute stinker of a game. So we've been, I don't know if it's because of KC's offense is, they're missing that deep threats in combination with their defense being pretty good. So teams can't score in them, and they're not scoring a lot of points, or what the issue is. But as a whole, it wasn't a good game. And Travis Kelce obviously wasn't a good game. So Travis Kelce, not a lot of points, 2.9 fantasy points, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 14 yards. And that's not going to do it. Very, very frustrating, especially when you start the week off. It's almost like, like a Thursday night bad beat, because you're first thing in the morning before the actual Sunday slate starts, and then you're already down when one of your big players has a tough week. So very frustrating for Travis Kelce, but nothing that I'd say I'm panicking about, but maybe it does open an opportunity to buy low going into the bye week. So talking about buying low, getting on that 22 fresh promo code 306 FFB15 gets you that 15% off at checkout. That's not maybe not the biggest buy low opportunities, but 15% off is giving you an opportunity to get that nice apparel, hats, toques, sweatshirts, sweatpants, all that good stuff at a discounted rate. Just sweat, like I wear my sweatshirt all the time, I wear my hat all the time. They're two of my favorite things. My brother-in-law loves his joggers. They're like almost like a thicker sweat pant material. They look real sharp, and he's a big fan. So we'll make sure that when you are going to the 22 Fresh to get your memorabilia or your apparel, that you use the promo code 306FFB15 at checkout to make sure you get your 15% off. Going into week number 10, we are welcoming back the Denver Broncos, the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the San Francisco 49ers. And not the biggest bye week, like this is another 4-team bye week. But for, I think, the fantasy options that are not in the starting lineups, this is a big one, especially for the quarterback position. We have the Kansas City Chiefs on bye. So obviously massive fantasy implications there. Los Angeles Rams, maybe not the massive fantasy implications, but you got your Cooper Kupps, you got your Puka Nakuas, you got some bigger names that Darrell Henderson, you got some guys that are on bye week. Miami Dolphins, that's an offensive juggernaut, lots of fantasy options there, as well as the Philadelphia Eagles. So we have three of the, I would say three of the top, whatever, for sure 10, maybe three of the top 5 NFL offenses where we have them on bye at the exact same week. So we're gonna be looking to replace a lot of our key positional players in our fantasy lineups this week. So some of these might be greasy, some of them might be real greasy, but we're gonna have to dive deep in here to get some fantasy starts. And Zach, and we talked about it at the start of the episode, or I guess not the start, but earlier on in the episode. So we might as well just go right back to you with hopefully a repeat performance.
Yeah, this might be being a prisoner of the moment, but I am considering, I'm looking at starting Tank Dell. This has a lot to do with his production last week as much as it has to do with CJ Stroud's production last week, but also the fact that they're going against a Cincinnati defense, which over the last few weeks has been one of the worst passing defenses in the league. Actually, it is the 3rd worst passing defense in the league, surrendering the 3rd most passing yards over that span. And I also think it also plays in the favor of the Cincinnati offense, an offense that has the capacity to score points, even with Chase being a little banged up right now. This could be a shootout where the Texans are forced to spread the ball and pass the ball, which would, in my mind, only help Tank Dell.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot, jumping on the wagon. And I want that. That's going to be a fun game to watch. I think that's going to be a really entertaining football game. Armand, this feels like a throwback to when we used to do Armand Stream of the Week. This one, I like it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, you know what? And I was kind of inspired by it, and I was looking at the teams on bye, and you got Mahomes, you got Stafford, you got Tua, you got Hurts. That's some pretty big star power in the QB department on bye this week. And you know what? I'm saying it. I kind of like Josh Dobbs as our QB for Minnesota. He showed the ability to run the ball. He ran a touchdown in. And he threw a few TDs as well. And you know what? I think now that he's got a full week of practice, he should be able to roll a little bit more, have a little bit more of the playbook under his belt to be able to do a little bit more offensively. And looking forward to him playing with better weapons than I think he's ever actually, when he's gotten a chance to play with in his career. So let's give this guy a chance, and let's see what he can do for Minnesota going for the rest of the season here. Miracle season for Minnesota.
Woo! Maybe he might actually know more than 2 of his offensive linemen's names too this upcoming week. Give him a chance. Maybe he knows his OC's name by now too.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with this one's. It's been an up and down season for Tyler Lockett. 2 weeks ago he had a massive week. This past week it was not great. It was not great for the entire Seattle offense. But this one is a little bit of a situation where bye weeks are going to get you. So Tyler Lockett is still a good name, big name, and a lot of upside. But right now, you're looking at a team the Washington Commanders are third for the most fantasy points given out to wide receivers, averaging 27.9 fantasy points per game. And the Washington Commanders also, if you forgot, got rid of their 2-star pass rushers. So they're gonna have a little more time in the pocket, which is obviously very beneficial for Geno Smith, being able to get Tyler Lockett a little more open in those crosser routes, and one of his best abilities is finding the soft spots in the defense. So already giving up a lot of fantasy points to the wide receiver position, and then giving more time in the pocket is going to be very beneficial to that Seattle offense. So I think Tyler Lockett is going to be a good play in this one with a lot of upside. He's a name that I'm going to want to have in a lot of, especially my DFS lineups where, you're kind of swinging for the fences. You got a lot of upside happening there with Tyler Lockett. So going to our sits here, we have, I know it's tough because of bye week. Sometimes we talk about names here that are, we'd sit them, but I mean, we're not saying, well, maybe we are, I don't know. I can't speak for all of us, but we're not saying just like outright, if you have this guy, bench him because, just bench him. You might be in a position where, like, push comes to shove, you might have to put somebody like this in your lineup. But I think for the most part, we have 3 guys here that, there's definitely reasons why we don't want them in our starting lineups. And the first one we'll start with is Zach here. And not only is there some reasons, I think there's a lot of reasons why this guy shouldn't be in your starting lineup right now. So Zach, let's take it away.
Well, Gabe Davis has been a real boomer bust wide receiver on the season. He's had as many finishes outside of the top 70 as he has had inside of the top 20. Last week, the past 2 weeks, I should say, perfect examples. This season, 2 targets, no receptions for 0 fantasy points. And then the week before against Tampa, 12 targets, 9 receptions, good for a top 10 finish on the season. This week, though, going against Denver, you could maybe look at having a bounce back week going against a middle of the road passing defense. However, I would caution you. It looked like against, I guess on Sunday, that Davis was potentially surpassed by both Kincaid and Khalil Shakir, the slot receiver for the Bills. And also with that Denver offense and that Denver defense struggling at times, there could be a situation where Buffalo doesn't need to pass the ball. They could just rely on that ground game to finish that second half.
Yeah, it's a lot of good points there in the fact that you just can't trust him. That's not a guy that you can trust. It's a hope and a prayer if you're putting him in your lineups. Armand, this one, there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't play this player, but it takes a lot of gusto to put a guy with his name value on the bench. But I think, like I said, there's a lot of reasons why you probably, if you have the chance, you shouldn't be playing this guy.
Yeah, and that's to say, like, you're not gonna sit him in every league, so just take this with a grain of salt, guys. And that, like, look at your roster and see if you can manage to sit him, because like he's not gonna boom this week, that's for darn sure. And that's Saquon Barkley against Dallas, and last time they played Dallas, he only put up 7.8 fantasy points. He was RB 32 on that week. And you look at him coming up against Dallas here, they're going to be fired up, trying to bounce back from that loss to Philly. Division rivals, they're going to want to lay the wood to New York, and New York is hurting right now and hurting pretty bad. And I don't see them doing anything positive against Dallas. So even though Saquon might get a decent amount of touches, they're not going to be efficient, and he's probably going to struggle. And that Dallas defense is for real, and they're gonna make life hard on Saquon and make it and force the Giants to beat them with other guys instead of Saquon.
That game is going to be ugly, like ugly. The only way Saquon has a decent week is if he snaps off a 60-yarder, like somehow is just out athletes the defense. Like there's just not a lot of, like, in full reality, there's just not there's a lot of opportunities for him to be successful.
Yeah, like it's gonna have to be like a beast mode, Derrick Henry rumble of some sort.
They're gonna
for him
load the
to
crap
have
out of
a
the
good game.
box. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's just so unlikely. And it's like I said, it's a huge name. That's a huge name. First round pick, probably second round pick, most likely second round pick. And you're benching him because not only he's got a bad matchup, but good luck naming their starting quarterback right now. Like
Yeah,
you're not
Saquon will be their starting QB
yeah,
in
go
Wildcat.
Last week, basically you could take what I said last week for my set of the week and replay it for this upcoming week. It's the New Orleans Saints defense. Like it's very, very, very good. They're one of the top run defenses, averaging only 12.6 fantasy points to the running back position. They've only given up 3 touchdowns to the RB all season, which is like very, very, very impressive. So I'm sitting Alexander Madison. Last week it was I think it was Deontay Foreman. It was like whoever it was, I can't off the top of my head, I can't remember who it was, but it was regardless, it was against the New Orleans Saints defense. And I'm for the same argument, I'm doing it again. But I'm gonna go in a little bit deeper here because now I think a lot of people are going to feel almost pressured or at least like super intrigued in playing Alexander Madison because of Cam Akers going down to injury, saying, oh, well, now he's not going to be splitting touches with Cam Akers. He's going to be a workhorse. He's going to have a lot more opportunities. He should be really good. But go back to the previous like couple of weeks before Cam Akers showed up there. He was the workhorse. He was the only guy. There was nobody else there to try and take away touches. And he got 11.9 fantasy points in week 1. Okay, well, it's because he got a touchdown. Take away that one touchdown, you're looking at like a 4 or 5 point week. Philadelphia got 3 fantasy points. Then the next week against the Chargers, he had a really good week, but the Chargers just give up a lot of fantasy points, especially to the running back. I think, well, especially to the wide receiver. They just give up a lot of fantasy points in general. Like the Chargers, their defense was especially early in the year, was not stout whatsoever. Then you're looking at Carolina. In that Carolina game, you got 10 fantasy points. So good, not great. Then another week against KC was like saved by a touchdown. The Chicago one, 9 points, 5 points, 3 points. And this past week against Atlanta, you got 16.3 fantasy points. A touchdown in there helps get it up there. But against the team of Atlanta, that gives up a lot of fantasy points to the running back position. So we're in a position where people are going to say he's the workhorse. He's, where the offense hasn't been as bad now, especially with Dobbs in there. It actually wasn't really bad. Like it could have gone really bad, but it wasn't. They beat Atlanta. It's a good position for Madison to be in, but the run defense of New Orleans Saints is very, very good. And you just go back and look at the previous stats. Unless he gets a touchdown, you're going to be very, very disappointed. He can get you a touchdown, get you 10 points. And that's maybe the safe amount of 10 points you need for the week. But that's a sketchy 10 points because you're banking on a TD and a team that's only given up 3 touchdowns to the running back position all season. So it's very sketchy, real sketchy. I wouldn't be real comfortable starting that one. Actually, you know what? I wouldn't be comfortable whatsoever. I know Armo wants to start Dobbs, but I think in that sense, you look at the statistics, they're going to have to move the ball through the air against that defense just because they are very stout and have been very, very effective against the running back position.
Yeah, your argument to sit Madison kind of helps my argument to start Dobbs this week.
Yeah. So we go find Jordan Addison, try and buy him cheap and fire him up, I guess is maybe what we're trying to say here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anything to add here, fellas? We're wrapping up episode 103. We're through week 10 here. Well, 1 month away, we're going to be starting fantasy playoffs, which is hard to believe. Armand, I thought you had me this past week in the Dynasty League. I was going to be real upset and real bitter this upcoming episode here recording, but the dream's still alive here. We're still fighting the good fight.
Yeah, I was a bit sad. CeeDee Lamb and Derrick Henry saved you.
Oh, I was in trouble early too because I had the Tua that was terrible. I had Travis Kelce that was real bad. I was sweating. I was sweating big time, but sometimes you gotta be lucky. You gotta be good to be lucky. And I don't know, I got real lucky this week. So
yeah.
But episode 103 in the books here. We got episode 104 coming up next week. Hopefully you survive this really, really tough bye week here with a lot of fantasy options on the bench. This is the type of week where it's a lot of fun because those random scrubs that you can get off the waiver wire to just patch the holes can win you weeks. You got to ride that roller coaster like Armin did on the Monday nighter where your defense spontaneously gets you 26 points and wins you a week. So good luck this one, everybody. On behalf of Zach, Armin, and myself, thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for listening to episode 103. Good luck in your matchups this upcoming week, everybody. Take care, and let's talk soon.